Kia ora, I'm Des from the Good Day Matrix. Today we sit down with Phil Thomson. Now, it's pretty special to be able to spend some time with someone who's genuinely trying to change the world for the better. Phil is the co-founder and CEO of Auror, and he was the New Zealand Entrepreneur of the Year in 2022. Phil is a husband and a dad to 3 small young boys. He was a corporate lawyer and he also has a degree in psychology. Some of my key takeaways are around diversity, inclusion, equity and belonging, about the highs and lows of his entrepreneurial journey, about encouraging people into tech, and about employing people that reflect the community that you are trying to serve. So please, as always, make sure you share this to help us grow. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for having us today here at Auror. It is such a cool space to walk into. We're immediately welcome, which is just so nice when you come into these spaces. But the funniest part this morning as we started was me and Sam don't really know Harry Potter. And so we were like, oh, so what's all of this stuff around here? We're currently sitting in the Hogwarts conference room. And so Emily had to fill us in of all the characters that were around us. So it's so cool, and it's got a bit of character, which is really special. So it looks like a pretty cool environment you've created.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for coming up and seeing us. Yeah.
Thank you. So, I mean, we'll talk a lot about wellbeing today. We'll start with identity and then just weave our way through it. So tell us a bit about your whakapapa.
So I grew up in Te Whanganui-Tata, Wellington, and lived there for 17 years. And a couple of things that reflecting for this chat about, which I took as very normal, turns out not to be so much. And, just growing up at a very multicultural school, we did kapa haka, Māori te reo was part of every day in our classrooms, and we did things like the Samoan sasa in our assemblies. And I think that just really helped guide me and into like the company we're building now around diversity in particular. But I think that's some really special experiences, which is very New Zealand as well. So that was cool to see. And as part of that, with Mum used to work at the Teachers College in Wellington. So, being on a marae, for instance, was also just part of growing up as well, and playing lots of sport. So I don't know, it was pretty cool just to reflect back on that early part of life before then going off to Otago for university as well. But Wellington, born and raised, but now been in Auckland for coming up 12 years.
Wow. And so living in Wellington, there's a lot of earthquakes, there's a lot of wind. So talk to us about how that's kind of shaped you also in your growing up.
Yeah, again, something that just was normal. I think, every, a couple of times a year, there'd be an earthquake in the middle of the night and you'd stand at your doorway and check on the rest of the family and everyone's there and okay. So I do think that that helped build resilience without really knowing it. Yeah. And again, that normalcy of things like earthquakes, but also strong winds. Again, it's like you'd go to school regardless of if the power lines were down or not. And rain was a common occurrence as well, although you can't be well on a good day. That just again probably just shaped those things for me around pushing through, perseverance, resilience as well.
Massive, eh? And massive that you can reflect and know that that was an influence, because some people would just be like, but earthquakes and wind, but you don't actually attribute it to the skills that you have as you move forward or what you've developed. It's
yeah, I mean, the recent flooding in Auckland, that was probably the reflection point for me and going, again, almost take it for granted that a lot of that bad weather growing up, strong winds, when you go overseas and you hear that's what we had in Wellington was almost classified as hurricane winds elsewhere. But yeah, I think it's just it's part of who we are, and has given me a good benchmark for the rest of the life as well.
Awesome. Now, there's something I really respect about you, and it's you can go running without headphones in, because it's just not something that I could even function doing, because my brain immediately tells me we've had enough and we should stop and my feet hurt. And so talk to us about some of the things that you do for your body and some of the routines you might have.
Yeah, really enjoy running, and probably about 10 years ago, I used to run with headphones and actually found that I could run longer without them, which is probably more uncommon. But, for me, running was actually a chance to think. And so, music's great and a great motivator, but I wanted to spend that time actually thinking about either the business or life. And that was a good chance to do that when you're out pounding the pavement for that. Now for me, I'm trying to do more at the gym, particularly things like stretching. I'm actually just trying to stay flexible as we get older, or start being flexible, more like it. And then swimming is a big one for me as well. There's something very calming about being in and under the water. If you're in the pool following that black line, again, a good chance to think. And then more recently, ocean swimming. And that's more like a good challenge to just be out there with other people.
Yeah.
But also I think there's something about being, a kilometre offshore, and the only way to finish the race is to get back to shore. Like running, you can stop if you get tired. Swimming, if you stop, then you're in trouble. So
You're on the wrong.
you gotta keep going. So those things, and I found that after if there's 3 or 4 days without exercising, that's when you really notice it mentally as well. So for me, it becomes like it starts with the body, but it moves to actually keeping your mind healthy as well.
Absolutely, and it links really well into because you obviously have a very busy role and you're doing a lot of things. So how do you incorporate it into your sort of the daily mahi that you're doing, but also prioritizing it on some tough days, I imagine, long days?
Yeah, I definitely find that after, but near the end of the day, your willpower's gone, so it's a lot harder. So best case is that you do it first thing in the morning. So I actually did go to the gym this morning, and that's always something that I try and build into my day. But also just making it okay for myself, but also for everyone else to find that time during the day, if it's not first thing in the morning, but to get out there in the sunshine. Walking meetings are a great way of also doing exercise. And then, I started 4 years as a corporate lawyer prior to starting Auror, and there was very much very structured, right? So when you're at work, and then if you wanted to get a haircut, or go to the gym, or go to the doctor, that was either during your lunchtime or after work. So when we built Auror, we wanted to be more flexible. So actually, how do you work around your life, and knowing things like exercise is actually beneficial for your mind and for your work? You can then start to go, do you know what, I've actually got half an hour spare right now, then it's mid-morning, I'm going to go out and do my exercise and come back. I've been a better person because of it. And then you got to model that as well. So it's okay, I say to the team, I'm off to the gym, it's the middle of the morning, middle of the afternoon, to show them that they can be doing the same thing as well.
That's awesome. We talked to Cecilia, who obviously put us in touch with you, and she said the same about picking her children up. And she said she'll actively make it out loud, like, I'm off to pick the kids up, so that it's becoming normal as well, that people don't have to work till 5 or 6, and that she's prioritizing that, and she'll sort work out later, etc. But for her, that's a really important thing to role model, that it's important to me. And it's just that top-down stuff is so critical and so important, not to also be the other way when people are like, well, he could do it, but I can't. But actually, no, this is what we're building this on. We want this to work for everyone. Yeah,
and I've also recently got a high-performance coach as well, and she also made me realise that to be at my best, exercise and physical well-being is an important part of that. So it's actually a disservice if I'm not doing that, and I should be building that in as part of being at work as well. So that's helped me just go, it is okay, even when things are really busy. Just taking that time for yourself, you'll get a better outcome.
100%. Now, you have a pretty stunning mind, and the things that you are creating, and probably, they're things we couldn't even imagine are going to happen, are going to come through from Auror, because you guys are really challenging the system and challenging what we see as a norm. So how do you keep your mind in that state to be creative and open in your thinking?
Well, exercise is one of those things to keep an open mind, and like I said, running or doing things without headphones also helps. Super passionate about what I do. So for good or for bad, I'm constantly thinking about work and what's next, sometimes to the detriment of others, family being one of those. And then, curiosity is important to me as well. So actually that's how we almost started the company. We were curious about the problem of retail crime. We didn't know anything about it, but we saw an article in the paper, and then next minute we're talking to hundreds of retail stores, spend nearly a year just working with police, going out and seeing them at their police stations or following them around and just understanding what they do. And that sort of curiosity really helped, I think, to then move towards I understand the problems and what you're facing, and then let me go away and think about the solutions and how do you apply learnings or understandings from other industries or what I've picked up elsewhere to this particular problem set as well. So for me, it's a really core part, is just being curious.
Yeah. And that learning, right? I mean, again, we just caught up with Therese Getting. She's the same. She said curiosity is the most underrated skill or value or whatever you want to call it, that we push to the side because we're busy and you keep moving, but actually taking the time to be curious and ask questions, that's where so much can be solved or so much can be collaborated on to get to better results for everyone.
Totally. I mean, and I talk about that as looking at a problem, right? But actually curiosity around people is very important as well. Like, why is someone saying what they're saying or feeling how they're feeling, and leaving the judgment behind to start with, at least, and just really going, how can I ask 3 questions to better understand that person and what they're feeling and thinking before then coming up with a solution or digging into why exactly they've said what they've said.
And do you think your degree of psychology has kind of helped around that curiosity, or is it just an innate thing that is just in you that you're just really curious about all those kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in how people work and think. So I did psychology as a degree more for that reason. But it definitely opened my eyes into like how the brain works and how complicated it and people are. And then from then on, it's just always been, part of building a team. You've got to be curious around people and who you're hiring, the team that you've got, how they're working, and also how to fit those puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, in a really meaningful way. It's really cool. So we talk a lot about communities, and they can be all kinds of different. There's no set definition in my mind of communities. So talk to us about the communities that you're a part of and how you've found them, how you've found them along the way.
Yeah, I suppose I'll go from inside out, and the first one for me is family. And I've got an incredible wife, Anna, shout out to her. We've got 3 young boys now, 3.5, 2 and 9 months, so really in the trenches. And she does an amazing job. Best mum in the world in my eyes, and I think that for me is super important. It's also super hard with the job I do and the travel I've got to do, running a global team. So just spent the last 2 weeks over in Europe and being in Monaco for the World Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. Anna was actually invited to join me for that, but she couldn't because it didn't make sense to bring three young boys with us. So for me, that's like, it's great to go home, and it was awesome to go home and actually see the boys excited to see me. Brings joy to the heart. The next sort of circle for me is probably the team here at Auror. Again, in Auckland, but also globally. We've got 130 people around the world, and it's been amazing to see that grow from the 3 of us that started it to that. And I think that for me, that team is where you also learn, you learn a lot from others around you. You've got to enjoy coming to work every day and working with those people. So our focus is on how do you hire and bring in the best people and talent, and then how do you create an environment where they can do their best work, and so they enjoy coming to work every day. And that's, I think, the difference. A lot of people see work as this, I've got to go to work to live or survive or to make money, versus actually going, I can go to work and I've got a purpose. I can be around people I enjoy being with and working with. And for me, again, that's a cool place to be when you come to work and you're actually genuinely excited about what you're doing and who you're doing that with. And then the wider circle is probably the tech community itself. So we've learned a lot over the last 10 years of building Auror, and now working on how do we give back a lot. How do we send the elevator down with the knowledge that we've got? How do you share ideas and connections and mistakes you've made, and ideally people don't make those same ones? And then even broader than that, now sitting on the Digital Industry Transformation Plan governance board that the government have set up, and I'm one of the industry reps there, looking at how is the government spending money in the tech industry, how do we help encourage tech as an avenue for people to go down, particularly either out of school or changing their roles. And for me, every year I get more and more passionate about how tech can positively impact on New Zealand and actually change our circumstances for the better. And therefore it became important, rather than just either sharing my thoughts privately with people or complaining about if the government needs to do more, actually putting my time and effort into saying, well, like, how do I be part of that solution? How do I start talking to more people about this? How do I share the ideas that we've seen work well here and overseas, and bring that to this group, and then make sure that if money is being spent, it's being spent on the right things, that we've got these pathways into tech, because I believe it's an amazing chance to actually bring more wealth to the country, which brings more social services, brings a better community, and people can do a 12-week course now. They don't have to go to university. They can do a 12-week course and they get nearly twice the minimum wage. And so if you look at even a lot of our rural communities, they could become amazing tech hubs, and then we can export to the whole world from New Zealand. Like, we're not having to produce a physical product, putting it on a boat, sending it overseas. You can deploy from here with a click of the button. People can buy things from Europe or the US online, and I don't know, that's the future. And New Zealand's in a great place to actually take advantage of that if we move fast enough.
Yeah. And it's amazing though, because your mind can see your goal, and then when we caught up, this is my vibe. You want great things for our future generations. You're not thinking what would be great tomorrow. You're thinking what's great for my kids and my grandkids, and what's past this horizon that no one's looking past. And so I think being part of that tech community, having your voice in the right spot, and having that direct line, hopefully, to the government to help make good choices, because there's so much potential. And just you talking for that 2 minutes already shows you're the right person to be sitting in there, and holding no bars in those kind of conversations, and being like, this is the way, these are the people we're talking to, and this is what we know, and we only know the still tiny little bit. We have no idea what we can do, but man, we can do some good on you.
Yeah, and I mean, our whole business is around making our community safe for our kids. And I grew up and you'd spend hours at the local park or walking the streets, and you wouldn't think about that twice, and your parents, they'd see you at dinner time sort of thing. And that's the place that I want our kids to grow up in. So that's part of what, why we built this company. And then wider than that again, you go, well, New Zealand's effectively a large city, right? We've got 5 million people here. We could really do some amazing things and be the country of the future. And like I said, technology is a key component in that. So we should talk about it more. Yeah. And I'm glad to be passionate about it, because it is such an opportunity for us.
Yeah. And making the pathway, even just saying there's a 12-week course, you don't have to go to uni for 3 years. It's not dumbing down the fact that you go to uni. There's an opportunity there. So if you can't see uni as your big, and student loans, etc., but there are pathways, and the more we can share that stuff, particularly with our youth who are struggling to see a pathway out of even owning a home, for example, there are ways and means. It's really, really cool. So around environment, I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about your leadership around diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, because when we caught up, I was just mind blown at the true authenticity of what you're trying to do. It's not kind of a tick box to say that we're doing these great things. So talk to us about what you do here at Auror around diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging.
Yeah, and I think you're right. A lot of companies or people feel like it has to be a tick box exercise, and the way that we look at it is we're building a product that's used by the community. So we want a company and team that reflects that community. We've also got a product that can impact positively and negatively on the community. Positive in terms of making it a safer place, and negative if you're a criminal. This is going to help catch you or stop you. And again, need to have diversity within the team to be thinking through the impacts that the product would have on that, or different users of the product, how they could use it. So that's sort of the basis that we built that around. And then also you just get to better outcomes when you have a diverse team. And for us, it's been a super long journey. We when you start a company, often it's a group of friends that get together, and then you often hire your friends. And 8 years ago, we looked around the room. This is not a very diverse company. We're less than 10 people, but we just knew that we'd struggle going forward if we didn't start thinking about it in a more deliberate way. So it took us sort of 8 years to gradually go from there. But now we're 50-50 in terms of gender diversity. Our executive team is 50-50. We've got really great alignment right across all of our teams around things like ethnicity as well. We still think we can do more. And Multi-Pacifica is an area, again, why I'm passionate around tech as a pathway, because again, we want that representation in our company. And so a lot of it was looking at how do you actually just take hiring, for instance. How do you make a job description more open so that more people will apply for the role? How do you post the job application in places where other people would see it? That's not your standard, internet forums, for instance. It's like one of our most recent hires, we posted on the Jobs for Mums website, and she was a returning mum, and she's like, actually, if I'm seeing it on this website, they must be deliberate around how they're thinking about diversity. So it's a good first initial step. So if you get more people into the funnel, then you still get the best person and the best outcome, but you actually get a much wider group of people that will apply for it in the first place. And then we think about it like you're putting a puzzle together when you're building the company, but also when you're building teams. And so you can make short-term trade-offs, and we call that diversity debt, and going, actually, this person isn't enhancing our diversity, but they're fantastic and almost one of a kind. We'll bring them in, but it means we've got to work that much harder to make sure that team doesn't go the wrong way in terms of diversity. And we'll also have to be okay with going, we're going to go back to the drawing board if we don't have the right candidates coming through, and or we won't hire that role right now. We'll push that for another few months and figure that out again. So it's short-term trade-offs, long-term benefits for us. And it's meant that actually when people join the company, they feel like, again, it ultimately all comes back down to belonging. Like if they walk into the company and feel like, it represents the community and it represents them, then that's success for us. And it means that they actually do better work. So in a way, it's selfish because you get, like for the company, you actually get better outcomes. You get people that enjoy coming to work, they put in more effort, they stay longer, and therefore, again, it flows on to better for the customers, better for your shareholders, all that sort of stuff, but ultimately it's best for the person. So that's how we think about diversity, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one and done, it's not a tick the box exercise. We're constantly looking at how do we balance that and what else can we do to ensure that we're a company that people want to work at.
And again, it just is it a testament to you that A, you're looking at the future constantly, and B, doing all these things for the right reasons with an authentic lens constantly. Like it's not how do we better our bottom dollar or how do we again tick a box or look better to the exterior, but actually we want to do this wholeheartedly and it means something to every single person who's here and that people feel that.
Yeah, and like got an amazing team around it. Like this is not a me thing either, right? It's the team have done this over a number of years, and we actually had all 130 odd people come to New Zealand from around the world in March this year, and we had a session where our executive team did a Q&A panel, and someone actually stood up from the team in the audience and said, "I just want to say, like, I never thought I'd see myself represented as part of an executive team." And it's given them the opportunity of seeing what's possible as well. So those are the small moments that just make it real.
Yeah, that's so special. What values do you hold that are non-negotiable in any environment? Because sometimes we get a bit of ethical fading where we say integrity, and at home it's absolutely, but sometimes we let it slide in others. So what are some of your non-negotiables in any environment that you're in?
It's a great question. The non-negotiables for me is probably positivity. I actually don't want to be around negative people, and they also bring down the mood of everyone around them. So that's for me becomes really core, and even more so as the company gets bigger. We can see how negativity can radiate and cause some really damaging thoughts or discussions. So again, I don't know, like I'm a realistic optimist. I think starting a company, you've got to be an optimist, and seeing the good in things and seeing the good in people. And so, yeah, positivity for me, not overly put, like not to the detriment again of like being too positive, but being realistic about things.
Yeah. And there's a amazing energy you get off from other people's positivity that just starts to fuel that next, the future thinking and all that stuff. It doesn't come from everyone sitting around the table dark as.
No, and like building a company is so hard, and we've been doing this for over 10 years now, and massive roller coaster where the highs aren't as high as the lows are low, and you really feel that as a founder. It's amazing to have people around you that can bring you up, and again, that's why positivity is important for that. But I think it helps build that resilience, because if you've got that optimistic viewpoint, you can actually get up when you're knocked down. You can coach each other through those hard times. There's always people that say no to you. You get 1,000 no's for every yes. And that probably goes back to your initial question around, growing up, and those are the things I took for granted, but that's what's actually helped me, I think, in building a company, is just that resilience and that perseverance around when things get hard. Like, how do you face into that?
Yeah, well, that's a great attitude. So how are you using data to really transform behaviour change, or really support behaviour change in the community with what you're doing with Auror?
Yeah, so we've done a couple of things. One, what we're proving out is that 10% of offenders are causing 60% of the crime, and we've used data across the entire industry to prove that out. So it's actually not about a kid stealing a chocolate bar. This is about people whose entire job is to steal for a living, and for profit. So they're taking large quantities, a number of times a day from your supermarket or your big box retailer, and that they're selling that or trading it for drugs. So we've helped our retailers, our customers, as well as the police, better understand what's actually going on in the community and trying to change how they're approaching that. But then also trying to also change the outcomes piece as well, because if someone has done 50 shoplifting offences, and each time they go to jail or be put on bail, there might not be actually an outcome that's changing. Like, if they keep doing that, if you keep doing it with the same outcome, it's not working. So again, then people like the police and justice sector can start using the data and going, well, actually, last time we did this, it didn't work. How can we get a different outcome? So they're looking at the drug and alcohol courts, or things like Te Paoranga, which is the iwi justice panel, as different ways to see if they can get a different outcome. And that's how you can start using data to make those better decisions.
Yeah. And that will be massive long term, once again, for future generations, if we can stop the cycle, as they always say, keep doing the same thing.
100%. That cycle, that's a really important part, because like shoplifting, most people see it as opportunistic. Well, it's actually not. It's very organised, but also it's a gateway crime. So it's one of the easiest things you can do. And again, for our youth, that's how they start. Then they get into more serious things off the back of that. So if they can actually be stopped in the first place, then or at least the risk reward trade off isn't worth it. That's how you can change the outcomes for them as well.
Massive. Yes, I'm very proud of you. It's very, very cool. So we talk to everybody about a thing called portion distortion, and it's all about time, because it wouldn't matter if you have children, if you don't, if you're a CEO, if you're not, like anything, we all struggle with time, just in different ways. So talk to us about some of the possible struggles you've had over your time, and maybe some strategies you've put in place, or some things you might have found that work to help you deal with any problems you've had with time.
Yeah, I haven't heard that concept, but it rings very true. So again, I think when you first start a company, you're doing 3 or 4 different jobs. So you have to work long hours. I think one of the things that from being at a corporate law firm taught me was hard work, and how to sort of progress through that. Going way back when to like my first job, Dad actually got us into the mail centre in the warehouse, like sweeping the floors, as my very first job. And again, it just taught me hard work. And for me, I think you can never really quite. It's always it's a balancing act. I always feel like the pendulum is always slightly the wrong way from what you ideally want. For me right now, it's swings between work and family, and yeah, I'm getting better. Like I said, I've just got back from a big trip. I took a day and a half off just to spend with the family for that, and trying to sort of help rebalance that. So a big part of it now becomes prioritization. So what do you give up and what do you trade off? And again, it's never probably necessarily a right answer, but how do you prioritize the things that are most important during the day? And like I said, if you need to go to the gym, like prioritize that. If you need to get that one piece of work done, like ignore everything else and just do that piece of work, and then make sure you get home. So, again, I often start earlier in the morning, try and beat the traffic in and then beat the traffic home and get home most days. So I'm there for when the kids get back from preschool, into dinner, bath and bed. And then you can pick up work or family time again after that. But yeah, trade-offs and prioritization probably the ways to do it.
And it's a great, I can't remember where I read it recently, but it is that thing of, if you are saying yes, what are you saying no to? Because something exciting might come, like, oh, that'd be so cool, but actually in picking that up, there's going to be something that's going to fall away or get not as much of your attention as it should have. So just knowing that, yes, it's exciting and shiny, but there's that flip side. Does that take priority over me getting to be there for the kids coming home, or like all those kind of things? Important awareness. So how important is it for you to make time for things that bring you joy?
It's important. I am lucky in a way that my work brings me joy, and so, like I said, the outcomes that we see, and the stories that we hear from our customers and the community, like that's what brings me and a lot of the team back to work every day. So, the thing that we talk about a little bit in the team is that making sure you're happy at work and wherever you work. If you're not happy, change that. Like, there's no point going through life and spending 5 or 10 years at a company if you're not enjoying yourself and you wish every morning you didn't go to work. And if that's the case, like, we encourage people to talk about that with the manager or with us directly, and actually just go, hey, I'm not enjoying it. And then how can that be changed? So we've had people in the team who have actually moved roles because they've always wanted to be, either from a customer team into the product side of the business. They want to try something new. We had someone who really wanted to be in the police after working here. So we helped him actually go through the police college course and supported them through that, into the police, and that was their passion. So looking at that, I think you start to go, if most days you go to work and you're happy, like that's the joy and that brings you joy, awesome. And then what can you also work on that brings you joy, which for me, family, exercise, really come into that as well.
Have you ever heard of a guy, he passed away a long time ago, but Randy Parch, he had a book called The Last Lecture.
No.
And he did a last lecture. So in the States, don't get me wrong, I'm probably going to give some data, but this isn't quite maybe the story, but over there somewhere at some university, you get invited to do a last lecture, and he was an amazing scientist in technology, but you don't have to talk about that. It can be anything that, if you were ever given the opportunity to say one last thing to the world kind of thing, what do you want to say? And he got invited to do it, but he'd also just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So it was genuinely going to be his last lecture. So you can watch it, you can YouTube him and you can see it. But there was one thing he went to his boss, and one thing he always wanted to do was build a ride at Disneyland, which is totally not in his field. It's like just so left field of it. And so he went to his first boss and told him, and he was like, no, like, cool, no. And he was like, oh, and it could have been the wall that stopped him. But he was like, no, like, this is something I really, really want to do. So he went to the next boss and he told him again. And the guy sits forward and he's like, look, there's this guy who I hold in high regard who's come to me, he's pretty excited about something. I have no idea why he would be or what the purpose is, but you're passionate about it. I value you. Let's have a conversation. and they gave him a sabbatical of however long, and he got to go and work with Imagineers and build this, right? And there's these lessons in it. It's amazing. Watch it or read the book. It's beautiful what he's done, but it's showing that brick walls are there to see how bad you want something is his message on that part. And it's the same, like, don't be afraid to talk to your boss or to challenge and go, why is this my day-to-day if I'm absolutely miserable? Because life is too short. You get about 4,000 weeks, fellas, and that's not a lot of time, you know, in the scheme of it. And once you measure it like that, you're like, why am I wasting weeks being unhappy? And
change it.
We need to change.
Change your environment. Change your life.
Yeah, it's so cool. So we've got some quick fire questions. What are your 3 favourite books?
I'll give you one fun one, which is Harry Potter, obviously.
Yeah.
We all enjoy reading that here. And then 2 really interesting books come out of the US military. Extreme Ownership, written by a couple of Navy SEALs, and looking at how they've applied their learnings from the battlefield to life and to the corporate world. And that taught me a lot around looking at yourself and blaming yourself first before blaming others. Again, I think it's an important piece to figure out before looking at external factors. And the second one is Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal, which is looking at, again, how do you almost flatten hierarchies and how do you share information intelligence rather than holding on to it, because the whole knowledge is power can be really detrimental. For us here, we've applied that and gone, how do we be really open, transparent around all the information within the company so that people can make the best decision with all the information. And then also you don't have these power vacuums of, well, I know something you don't know, which becomes really unfair.
Yeah.
It does. So those 2 books in tandem, and also like these people have put literally their lives on the line and learnt things in the face of war and life and death. So it's quite interesting to see how that applies to your everyday life, and very interesting lessons to be learned.
Yes. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
It was probably just before the birth of our first son, and a friend said, the only piece of advice you should ever receive is just be kind to each other. Particularly as a new parent, it can be so tough, right? And if you can just go back to that each time when things are hard or you don't have much sleep or everything else, that's a core tenet for us.
I love that. And yes, you do lack a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
So I've been hungry all the time, like that vibe of just ready to. What is your go-to pick-me-up song?
Go Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars.
Nice.
It's good jam, good sing-along.
Yeah, stunning concert too, I must say. What 3 things would you take to a desert island?
I'm sure I'm going to be stuck there for a little while. I would take a fishing rod, just quite practical if you want to catch some food. A tennis ball, because I think you can throw it against some sort of wall or, just play catch with yourself.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I'd probably take, I don't know how long a battery would last, but a Kindle. So you got lots of books rather than taking one book.
Just one book. Smart. Hopefully it's a solar-powered Kindle or something,
Great idea.
There you go.
Yeah.
Invent that next. What is your favourite board game?
A board game? Probably at the moment, Settlers of Catan, because it's quite a fun, it's competitive, but it's fun to play with other people.
If you could have dinner with any 3 people in the world, past or present, who would they be and why?
I reckon it'd be quite awkward to have dinner with some famous people, and I'm not sure if they'd enjoy or appreciate it. So I'm going to flip it and say I'd just go out with my wife for a meal because we don't spend enough time together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. She's going to love that.
Thank you.
I set that up. And last one, qualities you love about yourself.
Empathetic. And it comes back to that curiosity piece, I think. Again, understanding where people are coming from and looking for the good rather than the bad in people and why they're doing what they're doing.
Nice. Our final thing today, we have a deck of cards here, so you can pick a card. So it's a random question that you can answer.
Says, what chances do you wish you had taken? It's an interesting one because my philosophy is like we are where we are because of the choices we've made or not made. Looking back at things like university, you almost wished you'd spent more time either in lectures or doing more with your time than sitting around hanging out. But at the same time, that's what was fun at the time. That's what got me to where I am now. So even building the company, like there's a lot of times if you look back, I'd want to do that differently. But the whole butterfly effect, if you did that thing, maybe we wouldn't be where we are now. So always take the shot, I think, is my current thinking around, like, if there's an opportunity, go for it. If there's a person you want to talk to, reach out to them. There's no harm in trying, and some of the most interesting people we've managed to talk to in the last 5-10 years, it's been through a cold email and just going, do you know what, worst case they don't respond and I'm no worse off. But often if you can do it in the right way, they do respond, or you do get that meeting that you need, or take a chance and change your job.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome advice to finish on. I love that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for having us here today. If you like it, please make sure you share it. I shouldn't say if you like it, you're going to love it. So please share it with someone else who you think will enjoy this as well. And we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Taz.